Welcome, everybody, to the Retail Navigator podcast. I'm Joseph Goslan, your host, and today we have Dave. Dave is the economic development person from the city of Fairview, Texas. Fairview is a small, very affluent community in the northeast side of the Metroplex, and I personally am a big fan of that community, so Dave is joining us today. Dave, thank you so much for joining.
Hey, I really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you, and thank you for being a fan of Fairview. We always tell people we're this little hidden gem in North Texas between Allen and McKinney, and we kind of like it that way. When you find us, we're really happy you found us, and we want to bring you in and treat you like a neighbor. But we're okay being this little hidden gem in Collin County.
That's awesome. Dave, give us a little bit about your role in the city. And then if you want to say a few words about the community, so everybody will have a perspective of what's the size of the town and what's been going on in your town recently.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, my name is Dave Quinn. Everybody calls me Super Dave. I'm an economic developer for over 20 years, and I actually own Day One Experts, and we're a fractional economic development firm, and we're a consultant for Fairview. Brought me in to be their economic development manager in 2019, I believe. So now, almost 5 years, 6 years later, I'm almost ready to let go of the temporary or interim part, but no, so I found this great town in Fairview. It's a smaller community inside of Collin County. We're only about 10,000 people, but it's a community that 20 years ago had a vision for who they were going to be, and they've really stuck to it. And they have this love for dark skies, country feel, but they have this. The great thing about Fairview is they have this Highway 5 divider, and they planned for commercial growth. So not only do they have this quaint large lot homes in the country setting, which really is idyllic, right? Like in part of our population, when I'm presenting to people, I'll present our population and I'll talk about how many longhorns we have, how many llamas we have, horses, right? So you can own these animals and be in this country setting, but yet 5 minutes away you have Whole Foods and Dillard's and J.C. Penney's and all of this robust retail, which is in the commercial district of Fairview. So Highway 5 is the divider. Between Highway 5 and 75 is this commercial zone. And having that robust commercial allows us to have a really inexpensive tax base or tax for the home. So we have one of the lowest tax rates in Collin County, especially if you consider that we have a full fire and police force. So when you compare that, we are the lowest, which means you have a high level of services, but it's paid for by our commercial development. And so you talked about some of the things that are happening. We were very fortunate to have Lucy Billingsley and her firm buy the corner at 75 and 121 on what would the southeast corner of that intersection. She bought both sides of 75. And so we're very excited about the 250 acres or so, what she's going to be developing there. For the future office, mixed use retail, you think about a lot of the other projects she has going on, it's going to be very similar to that. And so when you have a partner like that come into your community and you know what the future, they are a prime developer, what good reputation, they buy and hold, so their product's going to age well. That's all very on brand for Fairview. And it's not just we want another one like we just built 2 miles down the road. They are going to customize it, and her team has done a good job of researching the history and the culture and just getting a feel for the community. And so when they build that out, it will be built to the community and reflect our personality. Every community in Dallas Fort, every community has its own personality. And so we're fortunate enough to partner with Lucy Billingsley on the future. Then we'll have another 100 acres or so available that is just south of her along 75. From a commercial future standpoint, we're very excited. And of course, we have the Fairview Town Center, which Lincoln Properties owns. They bought that several years ago and have been reinvesting. 2008, 2009, when the Fairview Town Center came on, it was a different time and place, and that was probably the worst time to bring a new retail center into play.
And so
they kind of fought their way through that. Lincoln bought it, started reinvesting, and really retail shifted, and went through a transformation. And then we're just coming in 19. We're all very excited. Things are rocking. We've got the turn coming. And then we have another world event that set us back again. You have COVID. And so now the world has changed again. But Lincoln through that has been reinvesting. Just recently, they're finishing up a new multifamily that's inside the center. They took some retail space that was never built out, and they repurposed it into multifamily. And again, it was perfect for Fairview in that it put it in the right spot. So it's on the commercial side, so it doesn't harm the sort of country setting that we have east of 5. And it also gives the retail folks inside the center that density is coming, right? So we have more density to drive the retail. We have a ton of retail available, but again, that's all shifted over time. What's needed for retail now is just very different than it was even 3 or 4 years ago. And so that density coming online, we're very excited about. And of course, we had Macy's was one of the big box stores. It's gone through it's had its troubles. Yeah. It didn't weather the storm very well, but we have some very exciting things coming on. I can't really go into how that's going to be repurposed. But one thing I want your folks to know and the brokerage community to know is that we're not sitting still on an empty box. So there's going to be some time, but we're not sitting still. And so we're very excited about the transformation that the town center is going to have. And if you're talking about what we're looking for, go ahead.
But before we go there, you touched a few points that I wanted to kind of ask a little bit more. And what we found, and I've heard you say that, so I want to reiterate that, is that it matches with what the town wants. It matches with what the feel of the town is. And what I've learned from talking to a lot of EDC people, economic development people, is that every town has different aspirations. Not every town wants to grow and explode. Not every town wants hard retail or national brand retail. I recently spoke with a smaller community on the southern part of the Metroplex, and they flat out told me, I don't want another McDonald's. I don't want another Starbucks. I want to keep this small town feel. I want a sit-in dining restaurant, preferably a local operator, right? So we want this small town feel to stay. We don't want to grow. At the same time, I talk to other economic development people and they have big dreams. We want to explode. We want a big retail. We want massive things. And it's kind of like everybody's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And this is an advice I give every developer. It's always a lot easier to work with the city than against the city, right? It doesn't matter that you have something that this is the zoning and you're going to build to the zoning, right? If the city doesn't want what you're going to do over there, it's not going to be good.
And I am a big believer in talking to the local economic developer, but because who comes into the town and can tell you, is my idea going to fly here? Is this going to be welcome? The local economic developer is the key to knowing. And again, if you look at McKinney, Plano, Frisco, just this 4 corners, if you were just to look at the paper and you're a developer, you might think my idea is going to fly no matter where I put it. But if you live here, Frisco is very different than McKinney, and that's different than Plano, and that's different than Allen. It's different than Fairview, but on paper, it's Collin County. The demographics are the same. The traffic numbers are going to be the same with some nuances. They don't like maybe when I say that, but from a very high view, it's the same place. So as a developer, you really need to understand what does the community want and need. And it's funny, I speak and consult all over, and communities go through this timeline where all they have is these small mom and pop unique restaurants. And they're like, oh, I wish we could just get a Chili's or a chain. And then they get that, and then they keep growing, and then they're like, I wish we didn't have all these chains. I wish we had the mom and pops that and you're like, you did, but that was like, you didn't want that when you had it, then you got it. And then so it's this dynamic system that I'm seeing is there is a lot more desire to come back to that mom and pop, localized. Maybe it's 1 or 2 restaurants, but it's that local person they're looking for. And they want to be one of a few versus, I don't need Chili's everywhere, or name your big box restaurant or big box store. So I think it is important to know the community, the economic developer, to understand the community. And I also say that on the community side, it's important to know who you want to be, because I can't go to a developer and say, hey, bring me something. If you're on your side, you're going, I'll bring you whatever. What do you want? And you're like, I'm not sure, just bring me something. And maybe it works and maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm afraid a lot of people don't do that step. I've seen a lot of developers keep the EDC, go straight to the planning and zoning. And for the listeners that don't know the difference, imagine that the economic development, they're the dreamers, they're the visionaries. They set the course of where they want to see the city to be, that 5-year, 10-year plan, sometimes even longer. They are the yes people. And then you go to the planning and zoning, and I call them, they're the no people. They're going to tell you what you cannot do, where you cannot do it. And if you're lucky, they'll tell you, okay, I'll accept what you wanted. But just because they said you can do that doesn't mean you should. And
Well,
this
and
is
that's
where a conversation with the EDC is really important.
absolutely. I try not to couch it quite like that because somebody it seems negative, but really the planning department is giving a set of standards and says every project will meet this standard. So their job is to take your project and say, does it meet? And to your point, at the economic development, we hate saying no. So we're like, okay, how do we get to a yes? And if you're going to go talk to our planning people, please don't say this word because that's a red flag. Say it this way, and then we can get it in and have a conversation because the whole thing is how do we get to a yes when you're talking to an economic developer? Or to quickly say, don't waste your time and effort. This will not fly. And I think that's as valuable as getting a yes is knowing early that you're not a good fit for the community. And again, as bad as economic developers, we hate delivering the bad news that this isn't going to work. But you'd rather have that up front than to sit through 2 or 3 meetings in 6 months only to find out that, yeah, this is never really going to go anywhere.
Yeah, and especially with bigger projects, it goes through certain phases in every city, right? You submit your application, you go through planning and zoning, then you go to the planning and zoning committee, then city council. And what I found, and correct me if it's different in your environment, but what I found is usually that economic development talks to city manager and the city council because that's where the vision is set. That is where the big rules are set. And it's a shame for a developer to come in and do a lot of work and a lot of planning, a lot of drawings and conversations with planning and zoning, only to be shut down at a higher level conversation with city council or the city manager when, like I said, they can save the time, save the effort just by having a quick conversation with you guys.
So
So
when I was working in Frisco, everywhere I've been, I've operated under the philosophy of you don't want to surprise city council, right? No surprises. Hey, we heard this rumbling, there's a project going on. We can share that sort of behind closed doors to say, this is a possible project. This is what it might be. And if that response isn't positive, and yeah, you go ahead and spend some more time to flush it out, then there's really no need to, right? Because you can spend all this time and effort only to get it to the final last hurdle and you don't get what you need to get. So yeah, that was always, I think you're spot on there. You really do want to talk to the economic developer, figure out, is this really going to be a good fit? Another thing I would add to your development team folks is if you're working in a city that has a reputation of maybe hard to do business in, I would make sure you hire professionals that have done work in that city before. You may have your dedicated team and they know the thing in and out, but they don't know the nuances that that planning department works well from. And we saw a lot of times projects would come from outside the state and they would bring their own team. And we're like, I would at least hire someone as a consultant. They don't have to do the work, but you need them to review your stuff because it will get bogged down if you don't because you just don't know the language. And there's a little bit of trust, right? I've never seen you. I don't know what you're trying to cheat. You might be trying to cheat codes or I don't know. But I know this guy, he's here every day, so he's not going to cheat because he's going to do the next deal. And so we always recommended when you go into a city, they have people that have done business there. That's really, you want them on your side so they understand the nuances of that city.
yeah, and as a broker, I talk to a lot of EDC people all the time from every city in the metro because it helps me, just like I said, a little bit behind the doors. Yeah, this project is coming over here and that project is coming over here. So I can navigate my client to, you should go over there because there's going to be a lot of retail, or you should stay away from there because they want to see more residential on that side of things. They're
Right.
not going to let you put a retail over there. And then another good reason, and I tell people an incentive to go talk to EDC is a lot of the time the economic development people have money. So let's talk about that. What does that mean that you guys have money, you guys have incentives, and you have grants and reimbursements? Share a little bit the tools that you have as an economic development person to encourage the projects that the city wants to see.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And every city in Texas, for the most part, has the same set of tools. They all wield them a little bit differently. And in Texas specifically, you have a type A and a type B. And again, Plano doesn't have this, so right off the bat, that's one that doesn't. But they've come at it a different way. But a lot of them use sales tax. to fund different projects. And if you're on a what's called a type A corporation, you're limited. Projects are more primary job focused, meaning that whatever is sold or done by the entity or the business needs to be sold outside of the community, right? So you're importing new dollars into the community, you're creating jobs. That job is derived from money that's bought from somewhere or brought in from somewhere else. Then there's the type B corporation, which is a little more community minded and think quality of place. So it can do everything the type A can, but then it's given a little more leeway to do things that are for the betterment of the community and to improve the quality of place, which a lot of times retail projects fall into that. Now, on the top A side, the way we did it, for example, in Frisco was we funded infrastructure. There is the opportunity to provide infrastructure. Every project coming when you develop has streets, water, sewer. There's infrastructure that needs to happen to make that go. So there is some resources there. And then, of course, you have the city level. You could do 380 agreements or TERS, which is they take a tax, a reinvestment, and money, property tax that's specifically for this location is reinvested to provide the resources needed to make that project happen. And every city, again, has these sort of basic tools. What changes is, again, the vision. What project is it filling a need that the community is actively trying to fill? And is it going to create future opportunities? So yes, this opportunity helps set up the next opportunity. And if I have this quality of life and this project, it's going to allow me to bring in this corporate 500 or this job producing. I remember a long time ago, I was helping and talking to the folks in Temple, Texas, and they have tremendous infrastructure for industrial projects. The challenge they had was they didn't have a movie theater, they didn't have a Target. So every time they get to the end of the line with the project, it became a question of the CEO going, yeah, I'm not moving there because my wife says she doesn't want to live there. It's a true sort of piece of economic development is creating this environment that people are drawn to. And so the great thing about Texas is we are very independent and it's all done at the local level. For the most part, resources are at the local level. But the bad thing about doing business in Texas is just because you did a deal in McKinney does not mean that same deal is going to happen in Frisco. I get to choose. We might do a deal with you here in Fairview, and then our clients in Melissa go, yeah, we're not paying for that because we don't care about that, whatever that is. And so you have to talk to the local community. And again, you have the concept is the same, but again, how they wield that tool and what they're willing to invest in is drastically different based on that community's personality, their vision, their strategic plan, what product are you bringing to them, and if they're hungry for that. So I had a client that they really wanted a grocery store, but they didn't want a ton. They didn't want a Brookshire's. They wanted a big regular, what they saw as a good one. Then they finally got the opportunity for that, but then the incentive got so big, the ask was, we're not going to do that. And so again, there's money there, but just because there's money there doesn't mean you have access to it. You really have to show up. One, am I going to provide the economic value back to the city, whether it's through property tax, you're going to raise the property tax on a certain property, you're going to create retail sales. So I know that if we do this grocery store or we do this retail, it's going to generate $300 a square foot in retail sales. So now I'm making money from a city. The only way a city makes money is property tax and retail sales for the most part, the retail sales tax. Yep. Or hotels, you have the hotel occupancy tax. It really is. It seems that you have to go to the local to see, okay, I know this exists. How do you guys have and what are y'all willing to invest in?
Yeah, I mentioned the grocery store. That seems to be like on the #1 wish list for every small town that I've ever spoke to in every state that I've ever spoke to. We want a grocery store. And it's so hard to get a larger grocery store, not because of the financial side of things necessarily, but because in order for a Kroger or TomTom or Target to come into your town, there needs to be enough heads, right? Enough people, enough density, right? Population to justify the footprint.
They also have to have the logistic capability to serve it, right? So one of the things when we were talking to HEB early on about coming north was they were hesitant because they weren't sure where they were going to serve that. If they open up 10 stores, where's that logistics? How are we going to provide for that store? So it's not always it is a lot about the heads for sure. but it's also in their supply chain. How are they going to serve that store?
Yeah. I want to touch on something you said a little bit earlier, and it ties to they have money. Why would the city give money to a developer? And a lot of people don't realize that a city has to, in some ways, think like a business. There's going to be costs. I'm going to have to pay for EMS and police force and public services and fix the roads. And I can't have a police cruiser from 2008, or some of the smaller rural cities, they have a fire engine that is like 20, 30 years old because that's what they can afford.
Right.
And if you want to live in a community like this, you want to know that the fire truck is not going to get stuck on the side of the road when it's coming to save your house. So all that has to come from, there's only two sources. It's either sales tax or property tax. There's no other income that a city has. And I've seen some city council members that are very resistant into bringing retail or some commercial projects into town without realizing that give it enough time, it will be okay. Then now you have to raise property taxes on everybody in town. And you got to choose one or the other. And
Right.
almost nobody wants to be the politician that says, let's raise property taxes. So you got to be more lenient towards those projects. But there's also other costs, right? What is the cost of putting that infrastructure to support the city and so on? When a city looks at things, it's not only what is good for the community and what do we want to see here? Do we want a grocery store? Do we want a movie theater? It's also about how this project is going to help us fund the things that the city needs.
I think that's an important role. I always coach our business owners and our developers that ask us for help in understanding that you don't just go in and say, I want an incentive because I'm bringing you something. What you have to do is show, here's the business case. And what you're asking them to do is fill some gap in that capital stack of, look, this doesn't make business sense. I'm not going to get investors investing in this property because it's not going to make the return on investment. Just like you wouldn't invest in something that weren't going to make money back. So if you can help me offset X cost or Y cost through an incentive, and how we do that, you structure it any number of ways, but you're offsetting cost or de-risking the investment so that it makes business sense. Now, you can argue over how much and how much is a reasonable return on that investment. But at the end of the day, we're asking strangers to invest in our community. And so one way that we can entice them to do that is by saying, hey, we'll help you offset these costs because for the greater good of the community, we're going to get some benefit out of it. And it doesn't need to be necessarily a cash benefit. It can be benefits in any number of different ways. What I see developers routinely come in, they know they've got something, they know other places have given incentives, and they come in and they just say, we want an incentive. Economic development people don't want to give you an incentive necessarily. Right? That's and the general population is, we're not here just to give you money. So what you have to do is come in with a business case and say, look, this is a great place. We could do X, Y, and Z, but we have this gap we're trying to fill. How can we fill that gap? And then that gives the economic developer an opportunity to be a problem solver, go to his tool chest and say, okay, look, we need to come up with $1 million. Could we do it in retail sales tax over 10 years for just rebate it as it's created? Could we offset the $150,000 right turn lane that we've got to pay for, that the developer's got to build? What are some things that we can do as a city to offset this cost? Now it makes financial sense for the developer to move forward and everybody wins. And so I always see that when things get started, they can go bad very quickly in that first meeting if you don't use the right language and you come out of the gate just saying, I'm not bringing this if you don't pay me. All right. I think in general, city councils have now gotten very patient in saying, all right, there'll be another guy come along and we'll work with him, or another person come along. So I think you're right in saying that it is a business case. At the end of the day, you're not doing this out of the goodness of your heart and because you need practice building a building, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're doing it because you're going to make some money. In order to make that work, there needs to be sometimes there has to be an incentive. You can also incentivize it because it makes sense 2 years from now, but if you want me to come early, you can offset some of my costs and I'll come a little early, right? Because you know that it's close, but maybe 2 years from now, there'll be a little more population in place because I know the houses are coming online. But as a city, I want you to come now. And we've had another client that was the case. They were like, we'll give you this incentive, but you have to break ground this year. And they're like, no, we want the incentive, but we're not going to break ground for 2 years. In 2 years, it's a slam dunk deal. We know you're going to need it 2 years from now. We want you to start now so we have the money. We want you ready to go when it's time, not starting to build then. And so that's how cities can leverage their incentives is we want you in place sooner rather than later. We're willing to entice you by giving you this incentive if you come early. So that's another way that cities use their incentives to move projects along.
Yeah, moving project along is exactly another example I've seen is sometimes you get stuck between a chicken and egg kind of thing. You have some extra vacant land where you can put residential development and neighborhoods, but they don't have retail. But no retail is going to come in until the development of the residential is there. So sometimes you got to incentivize one or the other to get started so the other one will get on board.
Yeah, and again, that's de-risking the situation, right? It's a risky proposition to start building when I'm not sure the housing is going to be there. So I'm going to offset that risk a little bit by giving you an incentive. And what happens is you're exactly right. One or the other starts, then the other one snowballs, but you can't guarantee that, right?
Yeah.
Even in Frisco, we used to try to convince people that, look, I promise you, you should buy this property because next year it's going to be worth more money and you're going to wish you'd bought it. But I couldn't tell you why. But I'm seeing a lot of deals and I'm saying now would be a really good time. But at the end of the day, it wasn't my name on the note at the bank. It was easy for me to say because now as a business owner, I understand that, man, when you sign a note at the bank, that's a different level of risk, right? And you really do have to need a little bit of incentive sometimes to be an early mover in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. As an economic development person, and I've seen many of different EDCs take different approaches to it. What do you guys do in order to attract people to work with you? Whether it's retail brands, whether it's developers, whether it's brokers, right? If the town wants certain things to happen, what do you guys do in order to advertise that, publish that, attract the right people, the right projects? What do you guys do?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a lot of networking meetings, right? So in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we're doing a lot of commercial development networking, whether it's with contractors and engineers, the people that know the players that are in the move. NACCAR, we're doing that. Another is to have a reputation for getting deals done, or at least having a quick answer, right? So a broker, a lot of times, they don't get paid till the deal's done, right? So if it's going to take me a year to get that deal, I'm going to walk it into places that I know I can get that deal done in 3 months because I'm getting paid in 3 months, not a year from now. And so the more we can de-risk it for a broker or someone who's got money on the line quicker, then you become this, you attract it, right? Again, you get this reputation in the marketplace. Hey, I can go get this deal done. Just talk to this guy. He's going to get you. You'll either know really quick, right? In 15 or 20 days, you'll know it's a no or a yes, or it's a yes and you get the ball rolling. And then once it's a yes, it's not 6 months or a year of trying to nickel and dime. It's this is the deal. Here's what we're willing to do. And you can have that yes in 60 days. And sometimes what we always say is time kills deals, right? So if it takes me a year to get you an incentive, you've probably already shopped it to another place that you can get. Maybe it's not quite as lucrative, but because of time value of money and everything, I can get going and be making money 6 months from now, not a year from now. And so that's one thing I think that really cities can do to help themselves in the marketplace. In Frisco, we were extremely, at least when Jim and I were there, Jim Gandy, my partner, people brought us deals because they knew 60 days from now we would be signing paperwork if it was a go. And if not, then it wasn't a deal and you just knew. So at least you could go to the next one. We got looks at so many different projects just because they knew we were a pretty quick yes. And 60 days doesn't seem like quick, but in the world of when you're doing hundreds of millions of dollars worth of incentives and deals, 60 days is lightning fast when you're talking about a public entity, right? So being able to move that fast. And again, that comes back to having a very clear vision of who you want to be and what you're trying to achieve. because now your decision matrix gets very clear and clean. This project either works or it doesn't, and does it move us toward our goal or it doesn't? And if it doesn't, then move on to the next one. But if it does, then it's just about, okay, how do we make it work for everybody? And I think that's one way you do that. And of course, just generally being active in the marketplace, talking to brokers, being easily acceptable. I see this sometimes from cities. When you go to the website, you don't even know who the person is you're trying to get to. And sometimes that's because we don't want to be troubled by the guy that's trying to sell me something. But we're in the business of being known. Put your face on the website and give them your cell phone number and say, call me. And that sort of proactive, I want to talk to you and I want to vet 100 ideas. Now, all I need is for one of them to be an awesome idea. But if I close myself off and you can't get a hold of me, I might not get but 5 looks at it in a year. I'm trying to get 100 a month. I want to know what you got going. Call me and let's have a conversation real quick about whether this is a good move or not. And I think that there's certain reputations in the marketplace that you have from different cities of how quick can I get something done there.
It's funny that you mentioned reputation. I had that call it pleasure of standing in front of a zoning commission of, let's not name the city, and tell them that they've became the mean girl. It's kind of like the city has a reputation of being so hard to work with and so hard to run a business in that I, as a broker, have clients that told me, I don't want to go there. I don't want to buy a building over there. I don't want to operate my business out of there because it'll be a pain in the you know what to do that because the city is so difficult to deal with. And you're shooting yourself in the leg. I don't care how popular you are, how everything grew in the last 10 years, because everything in the Metroplex grew in the last 10 years, right?
Yeah.
But if you have that reputation, this will come back and hurt you in the long run.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't mean that the city just gives everything away and always says yes. What I tell people, it's just, again, it's how fast can you say yes or no? Because even if it's tough to get a deal done, if I can do it quickly, which means like you do have a high standard, you can have a high standard and still be easy to deal with, if that makes sense. I might not like everything, and you've got to meet a certain standard, which if you're investing in my community and you make it through that gauntlet and you meet that standard, you want everybody following you to meet that same standard. And I think sometimes that happens in communities where one guy gets in at a standard and the next one doesn't. And so you don't know where the bar really is. Again, that makes things very hard to do business in. You want to go to a city, again, they might have a very high standard, but if I can get a quick understanding of either a quick no or yes, it fits, but you got to meet the standard. Once you know you've run that gauntlet, then you're protected when the next guy comes in to build something or the next person comes in to build something because they're going to have to run that same gauntlet. So I don't want a city to hear that they just have to accept and say yes to everybody. You can have a high standard, but do it very quickly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not necessarily the end result, the yes or the no. It's how painful it is to get there. Right? I've had cities that they pick up the phone as soon as you call and they'll be happy and they'll meet you and they'll talk to you. And there's other cities that you need to call like 6 times a day for 3 weeks until you get somebody to pick up the phone and they don't want to meet with you. And it's just, guys, you're a public employee. This is your job. Tell me you don't have time for the next 2 weeks and we'll meet in 3 weeks. That's fine. But don't make the process so difficult.
Right? Yeah, the uncertainty of did my message even get to someone? And again, some of that is just you have cities being pressured to do more with less. So they're growing. They have this ever expanding business coming in, but they're not given the resources to expand the people that can take care of it. So it's a balancing act of how quick can I be responsive to your point. Hey, I got your response. I got your call. I'm going to respond. This is when we can meet versus I just don't have time to talk to that person. So I'm not going to call them for 3 weeks. So that causes a lot of stress on your side because you don't know where you stand. Did it get answered? Did it not? And there is a balancing act there. It's not easy, especially on the planning side, because they are a lot of times in the fast growing communities that we're in, there's just a lot going on. And so it's an onslaught. And for the public service, they've got a stack of stuff on their desk and it doesn't ever go down. It just seems like it's
Yeah,
always there. So there is a way to do that in a way that can still be a pleasant to makes it easy for the business side.
exactly. Okay, so I want to give you like a few minutes to highlight your community. What's going on in Fairview, Texas? What's exciting? You mentioned the project earlier that's coming up on 75. Why should retail brands reach out to you? What kind of retail brands would you like to reach out to you guys? And just what does the community want to approach you guys? And this
Yeah,
is a
no, so I
platform, it's an
appreciate that.
opportunity.
Yeah, I think for us, it's important to realize that, okay, we're 10,000 people, but that's not who comes to Fairview. You're not just serving a population of 10,000 people. We have McKinney to our north, we have Allen, we have Frisco and Plano within a 20-minute drive. All of those cities have A+ rated school districts, so there's going to continue to draw people in. You have the live amphitheater project that McKinney's working on. You have Kalahari that Allen's working on. You have all of these amazing projects happening at this Four Corners in Collin County, or at this corner of Collin County. So from our standpoint, Fairview plays a really cool, we're an inexpensive play in this whole ecosystem that is Frisco, McKinney, Allen. And whether you're at our corner with Billingsley or you're coming into, say, an existing shopping center that has a good track record, which is Fairview Town Center, and is continuing to reinvest in itself and really go through a transformation there. We have a new office building that's online we're probably 60% filled out now. So you have that opportunity. And it's a unique sort of play to get on our side of the road. It's a little bit cheaper on your property taxes, but you still have access to all of these major projects that are taking place. And so that's what we want to see. For us, we want on brand and experiential type retail. That's the nature of, I think, most retail these days. It's not just about setting up shop and selling a widget. It's about creating an experience that keeps people and draws people here from other places. We love to serve the local population, but we also want to serve the person coming in from Princeton or the person coming in from Van Alstyne. We want them to come down and then spend maybe half a day here or a whole day. That's really what we're looking for, is these unique sort of retail experiential type opportunities. And we have the space inside the town center, and we have a very, I would say, aggressive ownership in town that for the right deal will work through how do we make that work, right? And they're willing to structure some things, I think, creatively to make it work. And that's what we have from an existing standpoint. And then, of course, you have Lucy Billingsley, who is one of the premier developers, builders with a reputation of doing such great work. And I know that she's looking for those sort of unique, what retail or what things can we bring to her side, to the Fairview side, that's going to be on brand and very unique to that development, and allow it to stand on its own and not just be one of 10 others that you could go to anywhere in the Metroplex. And again, creative. We're also very interested in that small to mid-sized business owner person. We're never going to have the economic incentives that we don't have 10 and 15 and $20 million budgets. So we're not going to have that side of the incentive. What we do have is a much more hands-on. You're going to move into a place that, again, we have the podcast called Getting Neighborly. The whole idea is this is the kind of people you're going to surround yourself with. And we have some incredible people in our community. And when you move in, you become one of our neighbors. And then it just feels different. I don't know how else to explain it. And if you hear people talk about it on the podcast, they talk about it a lot. When they cross Highway 5, just their heartbeat goes down 20 beats just because they've gotten out of the craziness that is Collin County. But it's a very engaging community once you move into it. And so what we have to offer, and we're very excited about where we are in the Metroplex. Obviously, Collin County, if you're going to be anywhere in the world right now, and as crazy as things are and the uncertainty, it's a nice safe harbor to be in. I always tell people that there may be a storm brewing, but when you have a storm like that brewing, you want to go to a safe harbor. Texas is a pretty good harbor. Inside of Texas, there's a lot of other places. Collin County is one of the best safe harbors you can do or be in during an economic storm, what seems to be brewing. Whether it happens or it doesn't, it's a pretty good place. And I think we're continuing to see The residential numbers come to Collin County. I mean, they're coming to Texas and they're coming to Collin County. There's a large number that just continues to come because we're getting phone calls from business owners all over the country and they just can't keep doing business where they are. Again, they see the storm coming and the high tax environment that they're in and just the quality of life that they're living right now isn't working for them anymore. So they're coming to Texas looking for relief. And again, Collin County is one of the top places to be to do business here in Texas. And Fairview, again, we have this nice little carve out and we're looking for the folks that are a right fit and a good brand. And if that is you, we'd love to talk to you. If not, that's okay. We'd love to go to Allen or McKinney because if you go there, that means there's going to be more traffic and the folks that land in Fairview are going to benefit from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned experiential retail. This is the #1 trend in retail today in 2025. Every EDC person that I talk to is talking about experience-based retail as well, not just the retailer side, but also the city side. Definitely, we're going to see a lot of that coming into play as well. And as those big box retail are moving out, because we've seen a lot of Joann's and Big Lots and Party City, Macy's, JCPenney's that are shutting down. And everybody's been saying, oh, retail is about to die for the last, I don't know, 3 decades, 4 decades now. Everybody keep trying to kill retail and retail keeps coming back. Retail is not dying. Retail is just evolving. And all that space that is getting vacated right now by the big box is going to get repurposed to things that we so desperately need, because retail across the nation is about 6% vacancy, which means we have such a short supply in retail that all those big boxes that are moving out and vacant in space is actually a good thing. It's going to open the space for all the need that we have right now for a different kind of retail. If I can order it on Amazon and get it in my house in 2 hours, I don't need it in the retail environment.
So I think, I think you're exactly right. I'll give you a perfect example. Last night we were sitting around the house. My daughter came home from college. It's an exciting time, right? She's back for the summer. And so we had dinner. And then my son's, let's get out of the house. Let's go do something. I'm like, what do you want to go? It's Tuesday night. It's 9 o'clock. What do you want to go do? But there was this desire not to just sit around in the living room. He's like, let's go to Target. Well, we didn't go to Target because I'm like, that's dumb. That's just, we're going to walk around and just be bored there. But I think there's an opportunity for retail that reimagines why people are there. So imagine a Joann's where it wasn't about just selling you thread. It was about bringing a community together and having you meet up and sew something really unique and different. And it became more about almost like a country club of people who love sewing and being creative in that environment. I think they didn't innovate. They didn't think, they thought they were selling something. Amazon can sell it faster and get it to you much easier than that. But what Amazon doesn't do is create a community of like-minded people who want to sit and talk about the new thing they just created and how they found an old pair of jeans at Goodwill and then created this. That's what you're missing. And I think that's where we're going to see retail move to, is there's going to be some innovative movers in the marketplace that sort of reimagine why they're there. The retail that's sideline. It's oh yeah, we've got it if you need it. But the real reason we want you here is there's a community, right?
Yeah, retail is just like every other business. It's always evolve or die. If you don't evolve, you go down the Blockbuster way, right? It's that simple. You gotta evolve or you're dead.
Yeah. We have a candle
Awesome.
company here. It's the Rocky Creek Candle Company. And again, you can order candles from anywhere. What you can't do is pour candles with your daughters on Mother's Day or a bridal shower, and you create a very unique custom smelling candle. Every time you light that candle, you don't remember the store you bought it at. You remember the people that you created it with, and you created this memory. And I think we love having him here because he's creating these memories, and we're the background of that, right? You remember that time we went to Fairview and made the candle? That's what we love.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, I want to be conscious of your time. Thank you so much for all this great information. If anybody wants to reach out to you, pitch a project, ask about availability in your town, how can they reach you? And we'll put all that information in the show notes.
Yeah. So super simple. Just go to our website, fairviewtexasedc.com. You'll find my information. Connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Dave Quinn 247. Or you can just Google Super Dave Quinn. I promise you I'll come up, and then click any of those things that come up and you'll find me. So love to talk to you. And again, I just want to thank you for allowing us to showcase Fairview. And we love this community, and I'm really glad that I had this time to spend with you and to talk about this. I love this work, and I love getting to do it, and I feel blessed that I've been able to do it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity today.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on the show. And for you, the audience, if you want to see more episodes about EDC and how they think about retail brands or retail in general, just subscribe on anything that you listen to your podcast on, whether it's Apple, Amazon, Stitcher, and so on. We're everywhere. And until next time, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks.